Okay, so this video is going to be really quick. I'm going to say it in really two parts. Hopefully you understand it. The first part is the court case versus McClellan versus Maryland. Maryland at that time, during the 1819s, was actually filled with a bunch of sort of corrupt banks to get over the monopoly that happened because of the trade business, right? So banks sprouted up and everything. And then decision by Congress was actually have the court actually make a second bank, right? The state of Maryland, what they decide to do is they decide to tax the bank, right? And that led to a lot of conflict because the state went to the courts saying that, hey, it's unconstitutional for this bank to happen, right? And they didn't have a textual commitment for the federal bank to actually charter that. However, in a unanimous decision by Supreme Court, specifically the Marshall Court, it held that Congress had the power to incorporate the bank, and the Maryland couldn't actually tax instruments of the federal government, or the national government basically, employed in execution of the constitutional powers. The primary reason was actually the necessary and proper clause, which established that Congress had to make laws required to exercise the powers established by the Constitution in order to help the people, right? So Marshall Court had sort of powers that weren't outlined in the Constitution, but they also stated that it was necessary and proper, right? But also appropriate and legitimate, which then covered all further objectives by the enumerated powers, right? And they said that, in terms of in conflict with the taxation, even though both parties, the state and federal, both have the power to tax, in this situation, taxation cannot occur because constitutional laws made in pursuance are therefore supreme and cannot be controlled by the states, right? Which set the precedent of actually, setting the physical limits of the implied powers of the Constitution, but also in which regard to which level of government national state had supreme when their laws conflicted, right? And the second part of this video is the federalism overuse. So federalism is a political system in which the powers are divided and shared between the national government and state government, right? There's national powers, which are reserved for only the federal, and then concurrent powers, which are both state and federal, and state powers, which are only state, right? The way I say it was that the views on federalism reflect the state of the country at that time, right? For example, normal federalism is like normal way of federalism. For example, McCulloch versus Maryland, but when Civil War happened, we went to dual federalism, which means that the federal powers overpower the state powers, and there was two separate and distinct. A cooperative federalism happened during the Great Depression because, money had to be regulated and everything since we're all in a gigantic recession, right? So Roosevelt decided to have, cooperative federalism where state powers and federal powers intertwine. New federalism is back to normal federalism, which happened during Reagan, and preemption federalism because of 9/11 had that there was invalidation of U.S. state laws, which conflicted with the federal law. So there's different clauses regarding power distribution. There's necessary and proper clause, supremacy clause, full faith and credit clause, ex post facto law, which is basically held accountable for the crime of that day, the Sherman Antitrust Act, and state powers, or police powers that come from the 10th Amendment, right? And then lastly, the Supreme Court is the interpreter of the Constitution. It also played a major role in sort of redefining what federalism is at that time and how to interpret such laws. Thank you.